How old are you now?
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, but at the same time, God has blessed me with years, and I turned 75.
75. And you are looking fabulous for 75.
Thank you very much. I have found out in the years that I have lived, and I have had some hard years, as people will find out as we go. But if you're not in God's hands and you don't serve the Lord, then you have a rougher life than you would have if you had Him in your life.
That's very true.
I've had
You're
it
not
both,
leaning on Him.
Yes, because I have had it both ways.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back to 1943. My dad was, I think, at England at that time. I think my dad was serving the war at that time. And so my mother was left. She was from Tampa, and she had to go to Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska, because that's where my dad was stationed. I was born, I was breech. And my mother is a very short lady, 5'3", and very thin, and she had a really rough time delivering me. And in order for them to get me born without a cesarean, which I don't think that was in a choice, she had to pull on ropes back then. They didn't have the conveniences we have today and the modern medicine and all that. So they had ropes up in the ceiling, and they had them fixed to where the lady pulled on them. You pulled on the ropes for the baby to go down into the canal. And so my mother had a really, really hard time having me.
Do you know how long your the labor was?
I do not have any idea, but from what I understand, she was in labor for a pretty good while. Plus, she had a really difficult delivery with me because of how I had to be born, but I was born okay. And for what she went through, it took a time for recovery. So my dad was military. My dad was gone to England during the war, and when I was born in 1943, my mother found herself in a place that she didn't have any friends. She had one lady that helped her a little bit, and my precious grandmother wrote her a letter, and this is what she said: "Doris, you might as well come on down." She says, "I've got the rest of them too." She had my Aunt Von Seal and my Aunt Bessie. They all lived in the same house. My Aunt Von Seal had a child 6 months after Momma. I was 6 months older than Kenneth. My grandmother wore glasses. I had never in my life seen anybody apparently with glasses because I was petrified. My grandmother couldn't hold me because all I did was scream and cry. And she would try so hard, Mother said. Finally, it dawned on my mother. Said, "Mama, she's not used to glasses. Take your glasses off." So Mama did, and I received my grandmother with open arms when she took off those glasses. Those mean old glasses was going to hurt me. And so she did that for a while, where she could hold me and she could hold Kenneth and all that. But Kenneth was scared of them with them off because he had never seen her with them off, you know?
Right.
And so she had a dilemma. She really did. Finally, she told Mother, she's Doris, and then she told me, "Erlene," she says, "you're just going to have to get used to them because I can't see a thing without them." All this time, she was taking her glasses off so that she could hold me and everything. But when she couldn't see me. She couldn't see much because she had to have her glasses.
Right. So this picture, you said, was from your first grade?
That is my first grade picture. That's what I look like in first grade. And that thing over my shoulder is a pocketbook.
Oh, is that what that is?
That is a pocketbook.
Well,
because
didn't you just
I
think
had
he
to
was
have
something?
a pocketbook. You know, Alicia gets a lot of things honest from her mom. Alicia always had to have, you know, be dressed up and pretty and all this, and so I had to have a pocketbook, so I can't say anything. I was probably the same way. I had a reading event at school. We had, you know, like we had circles back then. I don't know how they do it these days, but you was a blue bird, a red bird, or whatever. And I did have problems reading, but my teacher was Mrs. Dismuke. What a name, right? But
Yeah.
I loved that teacher. She was so beautiful, and she loved me so much, and she worked with me with reading. And we had a reading day for parents that they could come in at the time that their child was having their reading group. So my Aunt Von Seal came from Milton, which is 25 miles to Pensacola, to get my mom,
Wow.
to take my mom to the school. And her and Aunt Von Seal came to hear me read. And I was so excited. And I, like a kid, I waved, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was one of my fond memories of my mother and my Aunt Von Seal coming to the school and reading. And
did you have to read in front of the whole class and all of
oh
the people?
yeah, all of them.
Did it make you nervous?
That group that they came in, we had to read in front of them.
Oh my.
Yeah, it did. It made me nervous because I really at that time was not a very good reader. I had problems, but I got out of it. I love to read today. So.
Yeah, you do. Now, this picture, you and two other people. Can you tell me about that picture?
That is me, Pat, and Alice.
Okay, now who are Pat and Alice?
Pat and Alice was my first cousins.
Okay.
They lived in Florida, in Milton, and I lived in Alabama, Montgomery.
Montgomery, okay.
And they all came to see us, and I was so excited for them coming. And
so this was at Maxwell Air Force Base? That was
at Maxwell Air Force Base, and they come. I don't think they got to stay very long, but they were there for a couple of days. So it was a kind of a long trip for a few days.
Yeah.
Of course, I was a child, so I don't really remember how long they stayed, but I know they didn't stay very long. I wanted to keep my grandmother.
Yeah.
You know, I dearly loved her.
Now you and Pat and Alice were pretty close throughout your lives, weren't you?
Alice and I was not.
Oh.
Linda and Alice was close.
Oh, okay.
I was close to Pat. I was very close to Pat. I even kept her kids years later. Years later, when Jerry had retired, my first husband had retired from the military. We moved back to Pensacola, and Pat bought the house across the street from us.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to take care of Ace and Michelle.
Right.
But Pat has also, in the meantime, has passed away. She was such a sweet person, and she was good to me. And but just before she passed away, I got her phone number to the rest home. I think I must have called my mother or somebody, got the phone number, and I called her. And she was so happy I called. And what I said to her, Pat, are you ready to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior now? And she said, Earlene, I am. I am ready to do that. I'm ready to accept Jesus as my Savior. So I led her in the sinner's prayer. She felt that it was time that she was ready to accept Jesus Christ. And she was so bold about it, which made me very proud. And so I did. I led her to the Lord, and I think 1 to 2 weeks later she passed.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
But we were very close as kids. We used to go to our Aunt Bessie's house, which lived in front by the bay in Milton, and we used to go outside because Aunt Bessie would give us spoons and a bucket and stuff to play with. And when we dug to water, and we just thought that was the greatest thing in the world, that we had dug to water. It wasn't very deep, but it was still water because they lived so close to the bay. And we used to have so much fun, Pat and I.
Moving forward to your teenage years.
Yeah, we were still in Maxwell Air Force Base.
This was in Maxwell?
Yep.
And whose car was that you were leaning on there, Mom?
That was my boyfriend's car, Eddie Stiles.
Oh, yeah? Do tell.
Well, I met this good-looking dude and going for a walk and met him. And so I told my mother about him and everything, so she said she wanted to meet him and I could invite him over, which I did, and because we went together for probably 3 years. And because I met your dad 3 years later.
Right.
So,
now, he not only did he have that car, he had a motorcycle, right?
A motorcycle, yes. And I did some really dumb, stupid, dangerous things that I can tell now because Mother is gone. And yeah, but it cured me of it too, because we went on a motorcycle ride one night, in out Montgomery, Alabama. And in Montgomery, Alabama, on the way down to where we lived at Maxwell Air Force Base, was a really huge hill to go down, and traffic bumper to bumper. It was horrible. But anyway, we were having fun and doing what teenagers do. Of course, he wasn't a teenager. He was in the military. He wasn't much. I think he was like maybe 19 at the time. But anyway, a dog ran out in front of us, and we almost had a wreck.
Yeah.
But God saved my life. That was the last time I ever did anything like that.
Did Grandma and Grandpa know you were off riding that motorcycle?
No. I was a sneaky little girl.
Oh.
No. And that was another bad thing. That taught me a hard even as immature as I was, probably, that really taught me a hard lesson, because I could only imagine what would have happened to my mother. And I had off riding a motorcycle that she didn't know anything about, and we had a wreck and I got killed. And I didn't do that again.
Yeah.
If he ever rode me on a motorcycle, it was just on the base. That was the only time I would go, was on the base. Even he didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And we went together for quite a while, long time. And I really figured that we'd get married. But Eddie got tired of waiting.
So tell me how you met Dad.
Okay. Well, again, we take you back to Montgomery, Alabama, Maxwell Air Force Base. And we lived maybe 2 blocks from cold storage, military cold storage. And they had Coke machine. Mama wanted a Coke. So I told her, I said, well, the cold storage place has a Coke machine. I'll go get you one. So I did. I went down there, got her a Coke, and I met your dad.
He was working there? That's
where he was working. So then I told Mother that I had met a guy, and his name was Jerry. And could I invite him, down to come meet him? And yeah. So he came and met him, and he came a few more times, and finally they let me go out on a date. And then we just, went. And then, actually, he bought me my engagement ring. He borrowed the car. Of course, eventually he had to get a car, but he bought me an engagement ring, and I guess he gave it to me like on my birthday or something.
Oh.
No, it wasn't. It was Christmas time.
Oh, okay.
And he gave me the engagement ring and had Mother and Daddy's blessings. Daddy retired. Jerry went to Iceland. Then he came, we wrote, and then we broke up over the mail because something upset him, or upset me, I don't know what. And then Daddy wanted me to write him a letter and tell him that I was done with him and that we were over and everything. But Daddy didn't know that I wrote on the back of the letter, "Don't believe a word of this. Mom and Daddy made me write it." When he got out of Iceland and he got back on the United States, he had himself right to Pensacola. And he went to Mom and Dad when I was at school and asked them we could get married. And because Mother was young when she got married.
Right.
She didn't see anything wrong with it.
Right.
And she wanted me to be happy, and she knew that I loved him and that he loved me. And so they said yes. And so we got married.
And how old were you when you got married?
17 and a half. Arizona. No, actually, when we got married, that's where we went, was Arizona.
Right.
So let's talk about Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Well, I knew there were scorpions in Arizona because Jerry had told me.
I love this story.
And so one day of course, he was working at the base, and I was at the apartment and everything, and all of a sudden, I saw a scorpion. And I killed that scorpion. And I saved it for Jerry to see it. And I told him, I said, "Honey, I killed a scorpion." He says, "You did?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Come look, I saved it." And when he seen it, he cracked up. He laughed himself silly. And I didn't know what he was laughing about. And after he could talk, he says, "Honey," he said, "that wasn't a scorpion. That was a cricket."
So you had spent all day chasing down what you thought was a scorpion to kill it, and
Yeah.
it was a cricket.
Well, you gotta remember, I didn't never see stuff like that.
No.
In
And I'm sure the crickets in Arizona are a little different than the crickets in the South.
Oh yeah,
so.
and I'm gonna tell you something. I hated Arizona. I hated it with a passion. For number one, it made me sick because I wasn't used to the climate. I had very bad headaches. Yes, there was a little boy. They were very poor, and I don't think his parents were home very much. And they were really, it was really pitiful. But anyway, he come over to see me, and I went over to the house with him, and I saw how bad it was. It was horrible. I ain't never seen anything so horrible in my life, and I helped him clean it. And I lived across from a lady, an elderly lady, and I just fell in love with her. And one day I wanted to bake a pumpkin pie for Jerry, and I walked across the street, and I asked, I wish I could remember her name because I loved her so much. I said, could you tell me how to make a pumpkin pie? And she got tickled. So she gave me the recipe.
Aww.
And so I went back to the house, and I could not get that crust to do nothing. So I walked it over with the pie pan and the crust, and she rolled it out for me. And then I went home and made the pumpkin pie like she told me and put it in the oven and baked it.
Aww.
And I was so proud of that when he got home.
Yeah.
He loved pumpkin pie. I mean, he could eat a whole pumpkin pie at a time. I was not a good cook. I did not know how to do anything. It is so funny now, though, because over the years, I have become a baker.
Yes, you have.
And I excel in that. And
yeah.
So
that's why I find it funny to hear about your early failures.
Yeah, and let me tell you something else that was real funny. Your daddy and I were poor, and military pay wasn't great, and we were having to pay a lot for rent. And then one day I decided I wanted a roast, but we couldn't afford a roast. So I took out hamburger, and I fixed stuff in it, but I cooked it and put it in a pan and brown it and all that.
Was it horrible?
The dogs wouldn't even eat it.
Oh, no. It's pretty bad when a dog won't eat it.
When the dog won't eat it, it's bad. Very, very bad. Very bad. Yeah.
And then we have these pictures from Biloxi. Looks like it was either David's birthday or my birthday.
It was your birthday because we don't have any coats on and you've got sleeveless dress on. And I made that dress, by the way.
Oh, did you?
I did.
That was a pretty dress.
I had rented a machine. No, by that time, your daddy had brought me a machine because I had rented one first. Because he wanted to make sure that's what I wanted to do. So then he bought me one. Yeah, I made that dress.
Aww.
Yeah. And that was your birthday party, I think.
Okay.
So because of how the kids are dressed. I'm guessing it was your birthday party.
And then we have the picture from Alaska, which is where we went after Biloxi, and that was also my birthday.
It was also your birthday.
That was such a special thing.
Yeah. And I wasn't even. I was just still in my very early 20s then.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was. Let's see. I was 3 when we went to Alaska, and 6 when we left. So. That was somewhere in between there. So, yeah, you were in your early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alaska was a good time for me.
Yeah.
So, we had a pretty good life in Alaska. There was a few things. Jerry was a very jealous person. But he did really good there. I think it was only a couple of times that he got upset with me. One of his friends come to see him, and I wasn't paying any attention to him and his friend. I was just, me and you and David was watching TV and all. And apparently every time I got up, apparently the guy looked at me. Well, I called heck when he left.
As if it was your fault.
Yeah, exactly. I got blamed for what he did.
I mean, he should have gotten mad at his friend for looking at his wife.
Yeah.
So, any other stories that we haven't hit on from your childhood or early 20s? Because there's a lot of life to tell, and we're not going to be able to hit it all in one video.